My name is Rachel Bennett. I'm 29 years old, and I used to think that love meant being someone's priority. But with Nathan, I learned something far more painful. Being erased from someone's life while still being in it feels like drowning in plain sight, gasping for air while everyone around you pretends you're fine. When he proposed to me on a rainy October evening, kneeling in our apartment with a ring that caught the lamplight just right, I thought I'd finally become permanent in his world. I thought the ring meant visibility. I was wrong. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Nathan worked in real estate development, the kind of guy who networked like breathing and treated his Instagram profile like a second resume. Every post was calculated, every caption polished. His feed was a carefully curated gallery of success. Rooftop views, business meetings, gym selfies, artsy coffee shots, motivational quotes about grinding and winning. 11,000 followers watched his life unfold daily. But if you scrolled through those hundreds of photos, you'd never know I existed. Not a single picture of us. Not one mention. Not even a subtle hint that he had someone waiting at home. When I finally asked him about it 6 months into our engagement, his response was immediate and cold. My profile is my business, Rachel. I'm not required to post you. Those words hit me like a slap I didn't see coming. I remember standing in our kitchen, coffee mug halfway to my lips, trying to process what he'd just said. Required. As if loving me was some kind of obligation he was graciously exempt from. I teach 4th grade at Riverside Elementary. My life isn't glamorous. I don't have rooftop access or designer suits or a feed full of aspirational content. My Instagram is filled with classroom decorations, book recommendations, pictures of my dog Charlie, and yes, a few photos of Nathan that I posted because I was proud to be his. I tagged him every time. He never acknowledged them. Never liked, never commented, never shared. At first, I told myself it didn't matter. Social media isn't real life, right? But then I started noticing other things. When his colleagues asked about his weekend, he'd talk about the gym or a new restaurant, never mentioning that I was there with him. When his mother called, he'd step out of the room. When friends texted asking to meet up, he'd go alone, saying I'd be bored or tired. The invisibility wasn't just online. It was everywhere. I became a secret he kept in plain sight, a part of his life he never felt compelled to share. The breaking point came 3 weeks ago at a charity gala his company hosted. Black tie event, open bar, the kind of night where everyone took 1,000 photos. I wore a navy dress I'd saved up for, got my hair done, felt beautiful for the first time in months. Nathan introduced me to exactly no one. When someone asked who I was, he said, "Just a friend," then changed the subject. I spent 2 hours smiling beside him while he posed for group photos I wasn't invited into. Later, when those photos flooded his Instagram story, I wasn't in a single frame. I finally asked him why. He sighed like I was exhausting him. Because mixing personal and professional is messy, Rachel. You wouldn't understand. Maybe I didn't understand business strategy or networking optics, but I understood one thing perfectly. I was engaged to a man who treated my presence like a liability instead of a gift. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay beside Nathan in the dark, listening to him breathe, feeling more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. The ring on my finger suddenly felt heavy, like a promise that was never really made. I kept replaying his words in my head. My profile is my business. As if I was asking for trade secrets instead of basic acknowledgement. As if wanting to be seen by the person who claimed to love me was unreasonable. When we first started dating 2 years ago, things felt different. He'd pick me up from work with coffee, surprise me with handwritten notes, tell his friends about the teacher he couldn't stop thinking about. But somewhere along the way, I went from being his favorite person to being his hidden one. The shift was subtle at first. He stopped holding my hand in public. Stopped introducing me at events. Stopped mentioning me in conversations unless directly asked. And even then, his answers were vague and brief. When I brought it up, he'd accuse me of being insecure or needy. He'd say I was overthinking things, making problems out of nothing. So I stayed quiet. I swallowed my feelings and convinced myself that privacy was healthy, that not everything needed to be shared. But privacy and erasure are not the same thing. Privacy is a mutual choice. Erasure is what happens when one person decides the other isn't worth acknowledging. I started paying closer attention after the gala. I noticed how his female coworkers commented on his posts with flirty emojis and compliments. I noticed how he'd respond to them instantly but leave my texts on read for hours. I noticed how his best friend Jordan had no idea we were engaged until I accidentally mentioned wedding planning at dinner one night. Jordan looked genuinely shocked. "Wait, you guys are getting married?" "Nathan, you never told me." Nathan just shrugged and said he didn't think it was relevant yet. Not relevant. Our engagement. Our future. Me. I went home that night and cried in the bathroom with the shower running so he wouldn't hear. My best friend Lisa had been warning me for months. She'd say things like, "Rachel, if he loved you the way you deserve, he wouldn't hide you." But I'd defend him. I'd make excuses. He's private. He's focused on his career. He's just not into social media like that. Except he was into social media. Obsessively. He just wasn't into sharing me. The morning after the gala, I woke up to find Nathan already gone. He left a note on the counter. "Early meeting. See you tonight." No kiss, no affection, just information. I made myself breakfast, fed Charlie, and sat at the kitchen table staring at my phone. I opened Instagram and looked at his profile again. Perfect lighting, perfect captions, perfect life. A life I apparently wasn't part of. That's when I saw her. A woman named Vanessa had commented on his most recent post, a photo of him at some rooftop bar. "Miss seeing you at these events. We should catch up soon." He'd replied with a winking emoji. My stomach turned. I clicked on her profile. She was gorgeous. Confident. Successful. And in several of her photos, Nathan was there. Tagged. Visible. Smiling beside her like they were old friends. Or maybe more. I felt something crack inside me, something I'd been holding together with hope and denial. That evening, when Nathan came home, I asked him who Vanessa was. He barely looked up from his phone. "Just someone from work." "Why?" "Because she's all over your Instagram, and you've never mentioned her." He rolled his eyes. "You're seriously doing this again?" "It's not a big deal, Rachel." "Then why does she get to be in your photos and I don't?" He set his phone down, frustration hardening his features. "Because she's part of my professional network." "You're not." And there it was. The truth I'd been avoiding. I wasn't part of his network. I wasn't part of his image. I wasn't part of the life he wanted people to see. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. I was just the person he came home to when the performance was over. I stopped arguing that night. What was the point? Every time I brought up how invisible I felt, Nathan twisted it into me being dramatic or insecure. He made me feel like wanting basic acknowledgement was asking for too much. So I went quiet. I started watching instead of speaking. And what I saw made my chest ache in ways I didn't know were possible. Nathan's routine became painfully predictable. He'd wake up early, hit the gym, take a mirror selfie with some caption about discipline and progress, then come home and barely speak to me while scrolling through comments from strangers who praised him. He'd get ready for work in silence, kiss me on the forehead like an afterthought, and leave. In the evenings, he'd talk about his day in vague terms, never inviting me into the details. When I'd share stories about my students or funny things that happened at school, he'd nod absently, eyes glued to his phone. I felt like a roommate he tolerated rather than a fiancé he cherished. Then one Thursday afternoon, everything shifted. I was at a coffee shop near school, grading papers during my lunch break, when someone sat down across from me. I looked up to find a man with kind eyes and an easy smile holding 2 cups of coffee. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said gently. "I'm Ethan. I think we've met before at Nathan's holiday party last December. You're Rachel, right?" I blinked, surprised he even remembered me. "Yeah, that's me." He slid one of the cups toward me. "I saw you from across the room and thought you might need this. You look like you're carrying the weight of the world in that bag of essays." I laughed despite myself. It felt foreign, that sound coming out of me. "Is it that obvious?" He grinned. "I'm a high school counselor. I know the look." We talked for 20 minutes. Just simple, normal conversation. He asked about my students, listened when I talked, shared stories about his own work. There was no performance, no checking his phone, no looking over my shoulder to see who else was in the room. Just presence. When I finally had to leave, he said something that stuck with me. "You have a really calming energy, Rachel. I hope whoever you go home to knows how lucky they are." I smiled and thanked him, but the words sat heavy in my chest all afternoon. Because the person I went home to didn't know. Or worse, didn't care. That night, Nathan was hosting a few friends at our apartment for drinks. Jordan, his best friend, and 2 guys from his office I'd never met. I stayed in the kitchen, putting together snacks, trying to be helpful without being in the way. At some point, I heard one of them ask Nathan about his relationship status. "You seeing anyone seriously, man?" Nathan laughed. "Nah, just keeping my options open. Focusing on the grind, you know?" I froze. The cheese knife in my hand felt impossibly heavy. I waited for him to correct himself, to laugh and say he was joking, to mention me at all. But he didn't. The conversation moved on. I stood there in the kitchen, staring at the counter, feeling my entire body go numb. When his friends finally left hours later, I confronted him. "You told them you're single." He looked genuinely confused. "What are you talking about?" "Tonight," I said, voice shaking. "They asked if you were seeing anyone seriously, and you said no." He sighed like I was overreacting again. "Rachel, they were just making conversation. It wasn't that deep." "It is that deep, Nathan. We're engaged." "Why would you lie about that?" "I didn't lie. I just didn't feel like getting into it." His tone was so casual, so dismissive, like my existence was some trivial detail he didn't feel like discussing. "Do you even want to marry me?" The question came out before I could stop it. He stared at me for a long moment, then rubbed his face tiredly. "Of course I do. I proposed, didn't I? Then why do you act like I don't exist?" He didn't answer. He just walked to the bedroom and closed the door. I sat on the couch alone, tears streaming down my face, wondering how I'd let things get this bad. Wondering when I'd stopped being someone he was proud of and started being someone he hid. The next morning, Nathan left early again without saying goodbye. I called in sick to work. I couldn't face my students with swollen eyes and a shattered heart. Instead, I sat on the couch with Charlie curled up beside me, scrolling through Nathan's Instagram for the 100th time. That's when I saw it. A new post. A photo from last night. Nathan and his friends, all smiling, drinks in hand, caption reading, "Good company, good vibes, nothing better." I wasn't in the photo. I'd been 10 feet away in the kitchen the entire night, and somehow, I still didn't make it into his world. I texted Lisa. "I think I'm done." She called me immediately. "Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about the gala, about Vanessa, about him telling his friends he was single, about every small cut that had added up to this gaping wound. When I finished, she was silent for a moment. Then she said something that changed everything. "Rachel, you know my cousin Maya works in marketing at Nathan's company, right?" I didn't. She told me something last month, but I wasn't sure if I should say anything. My heart started pounding. What did she say? Lisa hesitated. Nathan's been telling people at work that he's unattached because he's trying to get promoted. Apparently, his boss prefers people who are flexible and available for last-minute travel and events. He thinks being engaged makes him look less committed to the job. The words hit me like ice water. He wasn't just hiding me out of preference or privacy. He was erasing me strategically. I was an obstacle to his ambition. An inconvenience to his image. Something to be managed and minimized. I felt sick. That afternoon, Ethan texted me. He'd gotten my number from a mutual colleague. Hey Rachel, I hope this isn't weird, but I wanted to check in. You seemed a little off yesterday. If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm around. It was such a small gesture, but it broke something open in me. Here was someone I barely knew offering more kindness than my own fiancé had in months. I didn't respond right away. But I saved the message. Because for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe I deserved better than being someone's secret. I didn't confront Nathan immediately about what Lisa told me. Instead, I started documenting everything. Every time he posted on social media, I took screenshots. Every time he introduced me as a friend or avoided mentioning me altogether, I made a note of it. Every dismissive comment, every eye roll, every time he made me feel small for wanting to be acknowledged, I wrote it down. I wasn't sure what I was building toward, but I knew I needed proof. Not for him, but for myself. Because he'd gaslit me so many times that I'd started doubting my own reality. 3 days after my conversation with Lisa, Nathan announced he had a work dinner. Another networking event, another night where I apparently wasn't invited. I watched him get ready, cologne and cufflinks and that confident smile he wore like armor. Have fun, I said flatly. He kissed my cheek without really looking at me. Don't wait up. The moment he left, I texted Ethan. I know this is forward, but would you want to grab coffee? I need to talk to someone who isn't involved in all this. He responded within minutes. Absolutely. I know a place. It's quiet. We met at a small cafe on the east side of town, far from anywhere Nathan would be. Ethan was already there when I arrived, sitting by the window with 2 cups of tea waiting. You remembered I don't drink coffee after 5, I said, surprised. He smiled. You mentioned it last time. It's the little things, right? That simple act of remembering nearly undid me. We talked for over 2 hours. I told him everything. The gala, the Instagram obsession, Nathan calling me just a friend, learning that he'd been hiding me to advance his career. Ethan listened without interrupting, his expression growing more serious with every detail. Rachel, he said finally, leaning forward. I'm going to say something, and I need you to really hear me. You're not asking for too much. Wanting to be acknowledged by someone who claims to love you isn't needy or insecure. It's the absolute bare minimum. I felt tears prick my eyes. Then why does he make me feel crazy for wanting it? Because it's easier to make you doubt yourself than to admit he's treating you terribly. Ethan's voice was gentle but firm. Someone who truly values you doesn't hide you. They don't make excuses. They don't treat your presence like a burden. I wiped my eyes quickly. I don't even know who I am anymore. I've spent so much energy trying to be small enough to fit into his life that I forgot what it felt like to just exist without apologizing for it. You're a 4th-grade teacher who makes kids feel seen every single day, Ethan said. You're someone who rescues dogs and leaves encouraging notes on student papers and shows up even when it's hard. You're not small, Rachel. You've just been with someone who needed you to believe you were. His words settled over me like a blanket I didn't know I needed. We talked until the cafe started closing. When we finally left, Ethan walked me to my car. If you ever need backup or just someone to remind you that you're not crazy, call me. I mean it. I nodded, throat tight. Thank you. For seeing me. He smiled sadly. Someone should. When I got home, Nathan was already there, sitting on the couch scrolling through his phone. How was your dinner? I asked carefully. Fine. Productive. He didn't look up. I stood there for a moment, waiting for him to ask about my evening, to notice I'd been gone for hours, to show even a flicker of curiosity about my life. Nothing. I went to bed angry. The next morning, Nathan's phone buzzed on the bathroom counter while he was in the shower. I'd never been the type to snoop, but something pulled me toward it. The screen lit up with a text from Vanessa. Last night was fun. We should definitely do that again soon. Let me know when you're free. My stomach dropped. I opened his messages before I could talk myself out of it. The thread with Vanessa went back months. Flirty texts, inside jokes, plans to meet up. Nothing explicitly inappropriate, but the tone was intimate in a way that made my skin crawl. He'd been having full conversations with her, sharing details about his day, asking about hers, engaging in a way he never did with me anymore. I scrolled further and found a group chat with his friends from work. In it, someone had asked if Nathan was bringing anyone to the upcoming company retreat. His response made my blood run cold. Nah, going solo. More fun that way. The retreat was in 2 weeks. He'd told me about it a month ago, said it was mandatory, said I couldn't come because it was employees only. That was true. But he'd also made it sound like he wished I could be there. Clearly, that was a lie. I took screenshots of everything. Then I put his phone back exactly where I found it. When Nathan came out of the shower, I was sitting on the bed, hands shaking. We need to talk. He sighed. Rachel, I don't have time for this right now. I have a meeting in an hour. Make time. Something in my voice must have registered because he actually stopped and looked at me. What's going on? Why don't you tell me about the company retreat? He blinked. What about it? Are you planning to tell people there that you're engaged? He hesitated just long enough for me to know the answer. Rachel, it's complicated. No, Nathan. It's actually really simple. Either you're proud to be with me or you're not. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. You're making this bigger than it needs to be. Am I? Because I saw your texts with Vanessa. I saw the group chat where you said you were going solo because it's more fun that way. I saw everything. His face went white. You went through my phone? That's what you're focused on right now? Not the fact that you've been lying to me for months? He scrambled. Those texts don't mean anything. Vanessa and I are just friends. The retreat comment was a joke. Everyone makes jokes like that. Except it's not a joke when it's part of a pattern, Nathan. You erase me everywhere. Online, at work, with your friends, with your family. I'm your fiancé, and I'm invisible. He sat down heavily on the edge of the bed. I don't know what you want from me. I want you to act like you love me. I want you to stop hiding me like I'm something to be ashamed of. I want to matter to you as much as your image does. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something flicker in his expression. Not remorse. Not understanding. But calculation. Like he was weighing his options. Rachel, maybe we moved too fast with the engagement. My heart stopped. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe we should take a step back. Reevaluate things. The ring on my finger suddenly felt like a chain. I stared at him, this man I'd built a future with in my mind, and realized he'd never been building it with me. He'd been building a version of his life where I was optional. Convenient when he wanted company, invisible when he didn't. I stood up slowly. You're right. We should reevaluate. I slid the ring off my finger and set it on the nightstand. His eyes widened. Rachel, wait. Don't be rash. I'm not being rash, Nathan. I'm being clear. I deserve someone who doesn't treat loving me like a career liability. He reached for me, panic finally breaking through his composure. I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did. And honestly, I think you've been meaning it for a long time. I just finally heard you. I grabbed my keys and walked out before he could say another word. I drove straight to Lisa's apartment, tears streaming down my face, and when she opened the door, I collapsed into her arms. It's over, I sobbed. I ended it. She held me tight. Good. Now let's make sure it stays that way. I stayed at Lisa's place for 3 days. Nathan called 17 times the first night alone. I didn't answer. He left voicemails that ranged from apologetic to angry to confused. Rachel, please, we can work through this. You're overreacting. I love you. Why are you doing this to us? Each message made me more certain I'd made the right choice. By the 4th day, I knew I had to go back to the apartment to get my things. Lisa offered to come with me, but I told her I needed to do this alone. When I walked in, Nathan was waiting. He looked terrible. Unshaven, exhausted, like he hadn't slept. He stood up the moment he saw me. Rachel, thank God. We need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about, I said quietly, heading toward the bedroom. I'm just here to pack. He followed me. You can't just throw away 2 years because of a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, I repeated, pulling my suitcase from the closet. Nathan, you told your coworkers you were single. You hid me from every aspect of your public life. You treated acknowledging me like it would damage your reputation. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a choice. He leaned against the doorframe, watching me pack. I was trying to protect my career. Our future. What future? I folded a sweater and placed it carefully in my suitcase. The one where I don't exist unless we're alone? The one where you're ashamed to be seen with me? I'm not ashamed of you. Then why does it feel like you are? He didn't have an answer for that. I continued packing in silence, moving through the room mechanically. Clothes, books, the framed photo of Charlie I kept on the nightstand. Nathan watched, his frustration building. So that's it? You're just giving up. I'm not giving up, Nathan. I'm choosing myself. There's a difference. He scoffed. You're choosing yourself, or you're choosing him. I froze. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb, Rachel. I know you've been spending time with someone. That counselor guy. Ethan. My blood went cold. How do you know about Ethan? He crossed his arms. Jordan saw you at that cafe last week. Looking pretty cozy for someone who's supposedly committed. Ethan is a friend. Someone who actually listens when I talk. Unlike you. Nathan's jaw clenched. Right. A friend. Is that what we're calling it now? You know what's funny? I said, turning to face him fully. You've spent our entire relationship hiding me, erasing me, making me feel like I wasn't worth acknowledging. But the second you think someone else might see value in me, suddenly I'm worth fighting for. It's not about him seeing value in you. It's about you running to someone else instead of working on us. There is no us to work on, I said firmly. You made sure of that every time you pretended I didn't exist. The argument escalated quickly after that. Nathan accused me of having an emotional affair. I accused him of having spent our entire relationship gaslighting me into thinking my needs were unreasonable. We went in circles, voices rising, old wounds reopening. Finally, I'd had enough. I zipped my suitcase and grabbed my keys. I'm done with this conversation. Where are you going? Somewhere I don't have to defend my right to be treated like I matter. I walked out, and this time, I didn't look back. Over the next 2 weeks, Nathan launched a campaign that felt eerily calculated. He started posting on Instagram again, but this time, the content shifted. Reflective captions about growth and learning from mistakes. Photos that looked deliberately vulnerable. Quotes about fighting for what matters and not taking people for granted. He was crafting a narrative. The heartbroken guy who lost the love of his life and was trying to win her back. His comments filled with people I didn't even know offering support and encouragement. She'll come around, man. If it's meant to be, she'll see what she's missing. Keep your head up, King. The performance was masterful. He even posted an old photo of us, one I didn't know he had, with a caption that made my stomach turn. Some people come into your life and change everything. I'm sorry I didn't show you that enough. I hope it's not too late. Lisa called me immediately when she saw it. He's trying to control the story, she said. He's making himself look like the victim so when people ask what happened, he can blame you for giving up. I stared at the post, at the comments pouring in, at the carefully constructed image of a man who'd learned his lesson. But I knew better. This wasn't growth. This was damage control. He wasn't sorry for how he treated me. He was sorry that I'd finally walked away. The next day, Nathan showed up at my school. I was walking to my car after dismissal when I saw him leaning against the driver's side door. Rachel, please. Just hear me out. I stopped several feet away. You can't be here, Nathan. Just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I glanced around. A few teachers were still in the parking lot. I didn't want a scene. Fine. 5 minutes. He straightened, relief flooding his features. I'd been doing a lot of thinking. About us, about how I handled things. You were right. I didn't treat you the way you deserved. I crossed my arms, waiting. And I want to fix that. I want to do better. I'm ready to post about us, introduce you properly, make you a real part of my life. Everything you wanted. I stared at him. You think that's what this is about? Instagram posts? It's about respect, Rachel. And I'm ready to give you that now. Now, I repeated. After I left. After you realized you couldn't control the narrative anymore. That's not fair. Isn't it? You spent 2 years making me feel invisible, Nathan. And the second I stopped begging for your attention, suddenly I'm worth acknowledging? He stepped closer. I made mistakes. I'm admitting that. But we can move past this if you just give me another chance. I took a deep breath. Here's the thing, Nathan. Even if you posted 1,000 pictures of us, even if you shouted from every rooftop that I'm your fiancé, it wouldn't change the fundamental problem. What problem? You don't actually see me. You see what I represent. And right now, I represent something you lost. That's not love. That's ego. His expression hardened. So that's your answer? You're really done? I nodded slowly. Yeah. I really am. He stared at me for a long moment, and I watched the mask slip. The vulnerability vanished, replaced by cold resentment. You're going to regret this. Maybe, I said. But I'd regret staying even more. I got in my car and drove away, hands shaking on the steering wheel. In my rearview mirror, I saw him standing in the parking lot, phone already out, probably crafting his next post. The tragic hero, rejected despite his best efforts. But I didn't care anymore. His story wasn't mine to manage. For the first time in 2 years, I was writing my own. 2 months passed before I saw Nathan again. I'd moved into a small apartment across town, repainted my bedroom a soft yellow that made mornings feel hopeful, and started saying yes to things I'd avoided for years. Coffee with Ethan became a weekly ritual. He never pushed, never expected anything beyond friendship, just showed up consistently and reminded me what healthy connection looked like. We'd talk about work, books, life. He asked questions and actually waited for answers. It was revolutionary in its simplicity. One Saturday afternoon, I was at the farmer's market with Charlie when I spotted Nathan across the crowd. He was with someone new. Tall, polished, camera ready. They were taking photos together, her laughing at something he said, him with his arm around her waist. The old me would have spiraled. Would have wondered if I'd been replaced that quickly, if I ever mattered at all. But standing there, basket of fresh flowers in hand, I felt nothing but relief. He'd found his next accessory. Someone willing to perform the role I'd refused to keep playing. He saw me before I could turn away. For a second, we just looked at each other across the crowd. I waited for the anger or smugness or some attempt to make me jealous. Instead, his expression was unreadable. Empty, almost. I gave him a small nod and walked in the opposite direction. No drama, no confrontation, no need to prove anything. Later that evening, Ethan and I were sitting on my apartment balcony watching the sunset. He'd brought takeout and terrible jokes that made me laugh until my sides hurt. "You seem different lately," he said gently. "Lighter." I smiled. "I feel different. Like I finally stopped waiting for permission to take up space." He looked at me with those steady, kind eyes. "You never needed permission, Rachel. I know that now." My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I opened it and immediately recognized Nathan's words. "I saw you today. You looked happy. I'm glad. I really did love you. I just didn't know how to show it the right way. I'm sorry." I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Some apologies come too late and from the wrong lessons learned. Ethan noticed my expression shift. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said, setting my phone down. "Everything's exactly as it should be." 3 months later, I ran into Nathan's mother at the grocery store. Patricia had always been kind to me in that distant, polished way. She looked surprised to see me. "Rachel, dear. How are you?" "I'm good, Mrs. Harrison. Really good." She hesitated, then said quietly, "Nathan told me what happened. I'm sorry it didn't work out." I could have said something gracious and vague. Instead, I said gently, "I'm not." She blinked, taken aback. Sometimes the wrong relationship teaches you exactly what the right one should look like. She studied my face for a moment, then nodded slowly. "I suppose you're right. Take care of yourself, Rachel. You too." Walking to my car, I caught my reflection in a storefront window. Same person, same height, same face. But the woman looking back at me stood differently now. Shoulders back, head high, no longer shrinking to fit into spaces that were never meant to hold her. That night, Ethan called. "Want to grab dinner tomorrow? There's something I want to talk to you about." My heart skipped, nervous but hopeful. "Sure. What's up?" "I'd rather say it in person," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "But it's good. I promise." I hung up and looked around my little apartment. Yellow walls, photos of my students, Charlie snoring on the couch. A life I'd built on my own terms. Whatever tomorrow brought, I knew one thing for certain. I'd never again make myself invisible for someone who refused to see me. And that was the greatest love story I could have written. For myself. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.